Hello everyone. I often receive emails from what I may call the wider world with questions that are too complex to answer in a single email. And here is a sample. Is it okay if white Western women wear a bindi or a sari? Can there be peace among Hindus and Muslims? Is the Christian understanding of the incarnation the same as the Hindu understanding of the Avatara? What is your idea of India? I will need at least 10,000 words to answer each one of these questions, so I will not answer them here. For now, here are two somewhat different questions. How can I improve my writing? And how can I train myself to think more analytically? I will not directly answer these two questions. That is, I will not give you in 5 minutes an answer with 10 bullet points. Do these 10 things and your writing will be improved and your style of thinking will be sharpened. I will instead speak in an autobiographical way about my pathways through the kingdom of thought. In my research, I work with texts that you could describe as philosophical or theological. More specifically, I read texts in Assamese, Bengali, Hindi, and Sanskrit, which embody various types of Hindu socio-religious worldviews. However, almost always I write only in English. It is within the house of the English language that I have carried out my multiple experiments with thinking. I let English write me, and thus I write. How did this self-surrender to English begin? I distinctly remember one moment. When I was in junior school, I read the following narrative somewhere. One day, a king said to his jester, "Make a pun on me." The jester replied, "Your Majesty, I cannot make a pun on the king." The king asked, "And why is that?" The jester replied, "Because the king is not a subject." It took me a few days to, as we say, get it. But I did get it eventually. And when I understood how the word subject was being used in two quite different ways to generate two different meanings, that comprehension struck me with the force of a mini revelation. The mini revelation was this: the English language is not just a collection of words and phrases on a printed page. It is a living, breathing fabric whose threads I can wrap around myself and which I can interweave to form my own tapestries. Language is not just one big structure. Language is also one big game. The structure is the game. The game is the structure. That was the beginning, I think. And then there was Asterix and Obelix. These are the comics written and drawn by René Goscinny and Albert Uderzo. They have been translated into English from the original French. On one of these titles, there is a note which says something along these lines: "The power to make people laugh is a great gift. That sentence had a profound impact on me during my schoolboy days. The possibility that by working with words you can bring a smile to someone highlighted to me once again the amazing power of language to change people through action at a distance. I often feel very repentant that my academic job compels me to write in a style that is loaded with technical jargon. As a way of saying I am sorry to the wider world, I write limericks on people I know, and I write short stories about the multiple universes I would like to visit. The next step is to write storybooks for children in the age group of 5 to 10. If you are an illustrator and would like to collaborate with me on these storybooks, please email me. By reading such a story, a 5-year-old child should ideally say, "Read that story to me again." And by reading that story, the professor of mathematical logic at Cambridge should ideally say, "If you want to understand Bertrand Russell's theory of mind, read that story." This I know is an impossible goal, but it is to this goal that I strive when I write a sentence in academic English. Or to be more precise, when academic English writes itself through a sentence in me. Around the time when I discovered the Asterix and Obelix comics, I stumbled into the nonsense verse of Edward Lear. This was possibly when I was in high school. What I find amazing about so-called nonsense verse is just how much full of sense it is. Here is a poem I remember from those days. I do not recall if Lear wrote it. The fortunes of war are very plain, a wooden leg or a golden chain. What I like about this poem is that it combines breadth of explanation with depth of precision. You don't have to spend 10 years in a university library to know what happens when human beings become involved in armed conflict. These two sentences summarize the contents of all those books you can read in many years. I have not yet told you about the greatest influence on my style of thinking and writing during my school days, and that is Sherlock Holmes, the great Victorian detective. I can skip on speaking for an hour and more about my love of these wonderful stories. But I will simply point out one narrative that left an enduring imprint on my mental horizons. In the story titled A Study in Scarlet, Sherlock Holmes tells an astounded Dr. Watson that he is not aware of the Copernican system. That is, Holmes does not know that the earth revolves around the sun. Not only that, Holmes says that he does not need to know such matters because they are not relevant to his work. The fire of an intellectual austerity keeps Holmes unwaveringly focused on a set of clues. And this style of intellectual austerity helped me to gradually understand that if I cannot articulate what I'm thinking in one sentence, I will not be able to articulate it even with 1,000 sentences. Whenever I read something, whether it is a book running into 300 pages or an essay in 5,000 words, till I am able to formulate its argument in one sentence, I feel like a traveler journeying through a dark night. And when I am able to formulate its argument in one sentence, I feel that the sun has suddenly broken through the darkness and lit up my whole world. In short, this is what I learned from Asterix and Obelix comic books, from Edward Lear, and from the Sherlock Holmes stories. It is possible to condense a huge amount of prose into a constellation of interrelated images. Today I do not really write with words. I think with images that are full of words, and I sketch those images with academic prose. So to return to my two questions, how can I improve my writing, and how can I train myself to think more analytically? I do not have any concrete advice to give you. If I say, read some nonsense verse and try to write some limericks, you may think I am trivializing a serious matter. But in truth, I am not. Let me end with a limerick on myself. There was once a pedantic physicist at Trinity whose mind really got messed up with infinity. Now he is the soul of the ancient library by the blue sea, where he claims to talk to God while drinking herbal tea. So why don't you give it a try? Just try. Highlight one central aspect of your life in 4 lines. See what really matters to you. See what can be set aside for now. I believe that if we can learn to think creatively with nonsense, we may begin to move in the direction of making sense. So my academic life is to me an ongoing game. And it is precisely because it is a game that I take it so seriously.